TR first.
John, do you have any update on where you stand with Joey Gallo and or Brett Martin?
Both guys are feeling good. Joey has never developed any symptoms. Brett's have, thankfully, the mild symptoms that he did have mostly subsided. He reports feeling better every day, so that's been a big positive, and I'm hopeful that they're not out too much longer.
With Mike Minor pitching today, I guess we got to go over this again. Where do you stand on your potential free agents post this season?
Haven't gotten there yet, TR. We just haven't gotten there at this point. We've had some very preliminary discussions internally, but we haven't gotten to a point where we're really ready to discuss it. Obviously, Mike's been great for us. I expect him to continue to be a big part of the club. I hope that's beyond this year, but really haven't gotten into it enough to discuss it here with you.
Other questions? Jeff?
It looks like a couple players have tested positive after the intake process. So, just wondering, is that something else you guys have braced for, that possibility? And is it worth mentioning to the players to tighten up?
Oh, of course. I don't think that's it's not really something to brace for. I think it's something to expect, right? I don't see why the public at large would be at risk of infection, and we wouldn't here. We're trying to be careful, but so are a lot of people out there that have gotten it. So, yeah, I'm hopeful it doesn't happen, but I think we have to expect that it will. And we've addressed it a couple times with our players, and not just our players, our staff too. Everybody needs to be equally careful, and we'll continue to drive that home. I think the good thing is that our players are pushing that every bit as much as we are. They're taking it seriously, and to the degree that there may be a couple of individuals that maybe aren't taking it quite as seriously. I think the bulk of the group is, and they will continue to drive that message home.
And then you've had to take the tests, right? The saliva test.
Yeah, I've taken it a couple times.
What is it?
It's better than the nasal one. I've taken the nasal one. I think 2 or 3 times. I've taken the saliva one twice, I think. So on the intake deal, you do a finger prick for blood for the antibody test, and I think that we're doing that about once a month. And then the saliva test, it's basically a test tube with a little funnel on the top of it, and you need to fill it up to this black line that's maybe, I don't know, an inch or two of spit into the test tube, where I know you guys want the breakdown of the spit to bubble ratio, but you need the bubbles have to be above that little fill line, so that you have saliva, like I don't know what the right term is, pure saliva below that line, and you can't eat or drink anything for a half hour beforehand, so it's not contaminated. No gum or candy or whatever. So if you think about that, if you haven't had anything to drink for a while, it actually takes a couple minutes sometimes to generate enough saliva. But then when you're done, you pop the top off the funnel, top off the test tube. They give you another this other little top to the test tube that you screw on, and when you screw it on, it breaks a seal and it releases this kind of blue fluid into it, which I assume is some sort of a preservative, but I'm not totally sure what that blue fluid is. You shake it up, and Then the CDT testers confirm probably 3 different ways your number that is on that test tube is the number that they're entering into their on the iPad, their system. And the last way, they actually scan the test tube number with the iPad, kind of camera. So it's there's multiple checks to make sure that is your sample that is going to the lab, and that's it. And you hand sanitizer and walk off.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
Yep.
Evan Grant.
John, when you look at the numbers here in Texas and in some other states, and you see them spiking like they are, I know you've got concern for the general public, but what is your concern as it relates to your baseball club?
Well,
Your baseball club.
yeah. I mean, I think those 2 topics you mentioned are kind of one and the same. I mean, I think that we're not operating in a quarantine bubble situation. So, what goes on in the community around us, is going to have an impact on, or could have an impact on the team. Not just the players here, and the staff in Tier 1 and Tier 2, but the people around the club, the people around the ballpark, are all of our families, that are in the community. And so, teams that we've talked about a lot. I mean, there's a competitive advantage here for the teams that can stay most disciplined and keep their personnel healthiest, because a positive asymptomatic test is a player could be out for 25% of the season, just by missing 2 weeks. So when you look at it from that standpoint, we're going to do everything we can and encourage the discipline and safety protocols as best we can. But there's an element that's out of our control, out of all of our control. Whether you're talking about your family at home or the staff here at the park. And so I am a little bit concerned from that standpoint. On top of the the bigger concern with public health is just that when you're in an area where it's more prevalent, it would at least seem on the surface that there would be a greater risk to the club. And that becomes a competitive issue on top of the health issues.
And on a different front, the story about Bruce Maxwell yesterday talked about your exchange with him here when he came through, and obviously you had dealt with any thoughts about Delino potentially kneeling in Oakland. Have you given any thought on how you would handle such a situation now, and kind of if that's changed from where it was 3 years ago?
Yeah, when 2017, Delino had talked to at the time myself and to Banny about his thoughts, and had mentioned that with Bruce coming into town, he was thinking about it, and I think they had spoken about it. And both Delino and Bruce have kind of talked about this publicly, so I would not have talked about it otherwise. I don't think I'm breaking any confidences, but in the conversations with Delino, we kind of talked through it a little bit. And he had mentioned that Bruce was there and was going to be around, and I had interest in meeting. I was impressed with Bruce in the conversations, just his thought process and his background, his family's background, his dad in the military. As far as conversations here, I've had some with Woody. I mean, there's obviously, as you guys know, so much going on, and all these topics are large or big and important in their own right. I have not spoken directly to any of our players at this point. My hope is that, or I don't hope, but I would want to support our guys, But again, I haven't had the full conversations with people yet to understand really what they're thinking or anything along those lines.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Chris?
Hey, John. First off, how does it feel to get Guzman back, and are you in a position at all to go into what caused the delay there?
Yeah, no, I can't get into the specifics of it. Obviously, as you guys saw, he was here for a few days, so you can, probably deduce some things there as far as him being allowed in, and our confidence level in that. But I can't really get into the specifics of the situation. I'm glad he's back. I view first base as maybe the biggest open competition that we've got. A lot of different ways that we can go about it, the positional flexibility a few of the guys bring. I think there's a few different ways that we can approach first base. And as Woody said, in a 60-game sprint, there's not going to be as much time to ride out certain things, and we're going to look for the guys that are ready to roll.
Other questions? Jeff?
Do you have any insight as to why MLB released its schedule today for next season?
I don't.
Any thoughts about the schedule looking at it?
I literally skimmed. I've seen it previously, and then I kind of glanced at it earlier. We'll be familiar with the West. We'll be familiar with the West by the end of next year, and I was just thinking about scheduling, opening up in Kansas City, and we usually play them at the end. So I was at the end of spring training. I was just thinking about that a little bit, but nothing significant.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? John Ronigan.
Hey, John, Rougned Odor does a Zoom interview with us, in the very speak you're in earlier today, wearing his mask. Robbie has said he's going to wear a mask. He's been wearing a mask under his mask. I mean, these guys are taking it very seriously, and I wonder if, our anecdotal evidence shows they all are. Do you feel like everybody on your team is, and do you feel like everybody in baseball is taking it as seriously as those two guys appear to be?
I think so. From John, from certainly what I've seen here. There's literally one time that I've personally had to ask somebody to put a mask on, and they had it in their hand. I think it was just one of those moments where we've all had where I took it off or whatever, and so I think our guys are being pretty smart about it. I can't speak for what they're doing away from the park, but we're driving that home as best we possibly can. And again, it's the public health issues, your own personal health and your career, your family's health, your teammates' family's health, and if none of that drives the point home for you, do you want to win and do you want to play, and what does it mean for on that level, on a baseball level, after you get through the health and safety piece of it. So there's a lot of reasons to it. Our guys are being really, in my opinion, pretty responsible about it. My counterparts that I've spoken to have reported the same. You read a lot of the stories around the league of, I read Jake Diekman's comments yesterday, and, we all have a responsibility to people beyond just ourselves in the situation, and I hope people continue to take it seriously. I think we are within the game. Hopefully that continues to grow outside the game.
One other thing, John, unrelated, but and I know Woody he doesn't want to divulge too much about how he feels this place is playing. How do you like now, having seen Major League Baseball players play baseball here? How do you like the way Globe Life Field is playing?
So I love the fact that our guys are getting some advance time in here, that really we wouldn't have had otherwise. We wouldn't have had. So, obviously I would prefer this whole situation had not come up. But if you're looking for a very small competitive silver lining, there is one, and that our guys are able to prepare. I remember, Torrey Hunter years ago, I was reading he was talking about playing in the Metrodome, and they obviously had that that unique roof that a lot of guys had trouble picking the balls up off of, and the Twins felt like it was a competitive advantage because they were there so much and they were used to it. And so, it's not going to be to that degree, I don't think, but having our guys train here for a couple of months, the dozen or so guys that were here, now having 3 weeks of training camp here, where our guys are able to kind of see how the turf plays, see how the roof plays. We're going to do it. We're going to practice at different times a day, so that they kind of get used to the different lighting. We're starting to turn on some of the video boards as we go, as you've seen, and so they can kind of see different backdrops and different looks. And I know Chuck is going to the crowd noise. Chuck's going to start working on some of that, and so not start working on it. He's been working on it for months, but start introducing some of that. So I think from that standpoint, it'll be a real plus for us. Some of our guys have made comments that the park plays bigger than the old park, and for me that's a feature, not a bug. That's by design. I think if we had to down the line you could always bring a fence in if you really had to. You can't push it back, right? So I think that was some of the thought process. But I don't think that's going to be an issue. I like the fact that hopefully it'll play more fair for our pitchers and not like our old park where it was a clear advantage for the hitters. We wanted more of a neutral deal. So it's been fun to watch the guys. Those home plate suites have been. And the being able to spread out in the stands has been kind of unique kind of spot to work during the day. Set up your laptop and plug in and be able to watch the workout, watch the game, and also get some work done.